Lessons learned about black holes. Okay, you got a calculator built in, right? You want to live in a black hole? Is that your domain box? Domain. I'm the main fire engine, firehouse number one, fire engine number one, creative engine number one. Made it with a girl's flower. Okay. So I'll give you an example of how you can actually observe, and in your own mirror, I suppose, you could do it yourself, because what I share is what I learned through experience. So what I share is the truth of what I experienced, and what I experienced, I share with others. Okay, how you experience being what you are in energy, not up to me, that's up to you, because that's your energy pathway. That's all there is energy, right? So here's an example when you know that you're an eternal being, right? And you're on mission status till we close out this book. All right, Book of Life. Yeah, so now we're back into scripting, right? Like prescription, scripting, RX, RX. X marks the spot of blood, King's X, right? How that works. And the difference between an inverter and, if you will, a universal or a multiversal generator of eternal love, right? So here's an example of how I was being honest and truthful with a gentleman that lives here that's still using drugs, okay? Like, downer. Let's put it this way. You get into the time dilation of people, speed, crack, right? And then you can get into heroin, opium, and, if you will, the methadone, how all the pain medicine works through AI drugs, right? Unless you're getting the stuff from mama, okay? Like what I use, which is kratom, right? Tryptamines, trinary stuff, three-wave stuff, mama stuff, right? Mama's a healer. And so here's an example, okay? Now, throughout the course of my life, remember, if you were watching some of my videos in the past about how when I was a small child, I was giving everything away. My mother would spend, this is like in 1959, $1960 at a men's store to have my clothes tailored, right? So I was wearing, because I remember the name of the shirts, they were called Gant, G-A-N-T, and Eagle shirts, okay? And so I would go to a tailor, and then my mother would have me outfitted. All the colors are coordinated, right? So she wanted me wearing like a vest, what was called a breasted jacket, usually navy blue with gold buttons, right? And very expensive slacks, expensive shoes, expensive socks, expensive shirts. Everything was expensive, high-end stuff, right? I wasn't comfortable with that, okay? I was actually would have preferred to be naked on a beach, being with a goddess, okay? Jumping out in the ocean to go body surfing, swim in the ocean together, hang out with the Pacific blue whales, blue sky, calm my mind, right? So you begin to already realize how you translate those experiences with other experiences that you're experiencing by virtue of what you're being held captive to, which is a money system, which is an energy system, which is an inverter, which means they're harvesting souls here in an energy harvesting system as a result of the way that they set it up, which is called the exchange rate of speed between a torque inverter, an inverter and a torque converter. Okay, so now you're into the speed differential, now you're into the math, now you're into the codes, now you're into broken arrows and broken lines of communication as a result of teratogenic and mutagenic effect, which is a broken motherboard, which is a broken grid. Okay? Because you realize that what came here, and you understand what self-interest is, which is X, male X dominates, right? Full spectrum dominance. So you can see how the U.S. military was pushing the full spectrum dominance, right? Now you get into the AI side of things, cybernetic architecture, and the rest of that, right? Okay. So when you start at that baseline of 0, and then you have a circle, if you will, or a sphere, and then you have the lines that go center like that, right? And then lines that come off the center point of every sphere, the center point of every cell. So when you're monopole, you're one. It starts with the one, right? Which is the eternal love vibration. Okay, so what I'm trying to share here as a result of the experiences that I've had, particularly when I was a child, is what are known as the speed ratio harmonics. And the speed ratio harmonics can be measured by distortions. Distortions exist as a result of broken arrows or broken molecules of DNA. Damage that's been done to the software. Okay? So that means that the software itself, the operator of that software, is losing energy or entropy as a result of its inability to maintain a higher rate of speed, which is its shield, its crystalline shield, a crystal spiral. Right? So here's an example of why, and this has always been very tricky terrain, particularly why there's an old saying when I was a child and adolescent growing up being around drug users, because I was using drugs myself, right? Now you enter the trauma-based mind control stuff, right? Fracture amnesic barriers, creating as many altars as they can. Then you can trigger that by using certain symbols and spoken words. All of a sudden, you remember that part of how they do this, particularly when you get into Hollywood and the Monarch program. Everything that came out of Project Ascension, everything came out of Basis Project with Max Spears, Super Soldiers, and all that. Even the girl I've spoken about, Misha, everything that she went through, she was being sodomized, okay, as a 3-year-old little girl by one of her own relatives. You can tie this directly into, for example, what Yellow Rose covered about how to hardwire the reptile brain. Then that becomes an improper seal. That means that that particular being, as a result of using the technology that they did here to fracture soul fractures off, right? And as a result of that, that creates alter, because now they don't remember their original identity. And as a result of that hardwire, now you begin to realize what happens to that particular soul that may have originated from the branch of man, our branch, the branch of one, right? That now gets improperly sealed. Which means it started out as a one, the branch of mankind, now gets sealed by the reptile branch. Okay? Now you can see, if you do the math, the acceleration of inverters. So that Satan, if you will, Set-an, can harvest that much more energy off of who? The branch of mankind. Against me, the one. Okay? That's why it's horrific loss. That's one of the reasons why the math and the musical notes, when it comes to polarity integration and recovering fragments, is recovering identities. And knowing which ones go with who. When you get into the improper seal of things. Okay? Because we don't run a reptile brain. They do. Okay? So plug that into the equation. That's why there was horrific crimes, which was to alter the original identity, the original template. Okay? That's why this was a massive war on a universal scale, a universal template scale. Now, when you add in the infection and the virus, right, and why so much of what Rose was putting out, now you become aware of what she's aware of. Now, what we have to decide within our own selves is whether what she's experiencing by what she's communicating is true or not. Right? So I know what's true. That's called knowing. That's why certain pieces of information, the way I did this ever since I was a kid. At the end of the day, your soul and your spirit is the ultimate chooser of what you know to be true by the relationship that you have with your Creator. So I know that within my own heart and soul, I experience eternal unconditional love to my heart and soul. And I acknowledge that at age 4, and that has never changed. So I know the branch from which I am. I am one. A monopole. Okay? So now you can see how this sort of translates, for example, when I have a gentleman here who comes from the Arcturian side of blood, which is AB positive, right? And what he's trying to do is negotiate with me, trying to get money, cash. Okay? How do you think I feel about that? Extremely uncomfortable. And that is precisely what it's designed to do. Make you uncomfortable so that your water worlds are not experiencing a state of peace. Because his mind's energy is not in a state of peace because he's living in a black hole. So I tried to explain this in the loving, it's kindest way that I could. And this is simple to do because, see, he knows I've been there because I tell him the truth. I've been where you've been. I've experienced being in a black hole and blowing holes in my shield. And I had to restore my spirit, which restore my energy, right? Spin back up, vibrational speed, and restore everything that I lost as a result of what they did here against the one. That means I had to be willing to experience everything they were throwing at everybody here against our branch. Okay? Because they know how powerful we are. Okay? That's when Patty Broussard mentioned the real boogeyman. So I explain it a little bit differently, which is a creative engine, the first engine out of the house. Right? As soon as I hear that there's anything that's gone down where anybody's energy is not experiencing a state of peace, woo, bring that energy right in there. Everything's going to be calm down. Everything's cool. We love you. Particularly when you hold their hands. I use my right hand if I can grab their right hand. Right? Look directly into their eyes. Look directly into their eyes. Boy, I actually stopped this android when I did that. Whoa. I actually stopped this AI. Cool stuff. So what I try to do is impart to him how the basic math works.